Hi, this is Brandon from Tay Talk Tech, back with another episode of Linux Sundays. And you always know it's Linux Sunday because you hear the air horn. All right, so there's a big marketing point that a lot of distributions out there like to use, and it's revive your old laptop or your old computer with Linux, and that is very, very true. Um, Probably at the later part of 2018 or early part of 2019, I purchased a cheap HP small form factor desktop. That was probably about 10, 12 years old. It ran with a Core 2 Duo in it, and I think it had like 4 gigabytes of RAM. It was very, 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 very weak compared to current hardware. And really, I didn't come with an operating system, and I didn't really get it to utilize with Windows. I really got it so I could utilize it as a Linux PC. And one of the first things that I did is I installed Ubuntu, and at that time it was Ubuntu's long-term distribution or supported distribution was Ubuntu 18.04, and it ran just fine. It ran just fine. I didn't come with a hard drive, so I stuck a cheap SSD in there, and it ran great. I wasn't really trying to do anything fancy on it. Um, Other than really, I kind of just experimented a little bit. I really wish now, kind of looking back, I would have spent more time with that Ubuntu desktop. Just so I would have, a little bit, a little bit more to talk to in regards to this. Well, you know, when it comes to Linux distributions, they are typically going to be a lot less resource heavy than Windows 10, but not all of them are created equal. You're going to have some that are going to eat up more resources than other ones. Like Pop! OS does tend to be a little bit heavier as far as resources go. A lot of that has to do with the GNOME desktop implementation. GNOME tends to be a little bit more resource heavy. You have like your lighter desktop environments. You can actually configure Pop! OS in most in any Linux distribution with any desktop. But some of your lighter desktops are going to be like your Cinnamon, your what is it, LXDE, and XFCE is also another lightweight desktop. I've spent the last week kind of just really trying to see, okay, well, what's really going to be the best for old hardware, and you know, it's really going to depend on how old your hardware is, and what type of hardware you're utilizing, and what type of and how much of that hardware has to offer, as far as how many cores does it have, how much RAM does it have, and things like that. So I spent a lot of time kind of going around the internet, just trying to find something that's super, super, super lightweight. And it really, the two top ones that I really kind of kept coming into contact with was one is called Bodhi Linux, and then the other one was called Puppy Linux. Now, my go-to lightweight distribution used to be Lubuntu, but Lubuntu had some kind of awakening and has decided that they are no longer going to focus on lightweight distributions, and they've kind of moved on. They've abandoned their old website, and they had a great release of Lubuntu 16.04 LTS, which was fantastic, on old hardware. And I really, really enjoyed that, but I really wanted to find something that was going to be equivalent, and if not even a little bit better. And the one I settled on was Bodhi Linux, which is what you're actually seeing on the screen right now. And I do apologize about me spending the first almost 5 minutes of the video with you just staring at this screen, but this is going to be, I guess, more the talking head portion. of the video is what we'll call it. So Bodhi has very, very low requirements as far as its base running configuration can handle. Now, really, it as long as you've got at least a 32-bit 500 megahertz processor, 512 megabytes of RAM, and 5 gigabytes of drive space, it's going to be able to run. Now, keep in mind that when we're talking about run, that does not mean, or that doesn't necessarily entail that it's going to run very well. When we're looking at a lot of older hardware, if you were to go on eBay and just search for some kind of cheap laptop, you're going to be looking at something from more than likely from Intel's Core 2 Quad days, their Core 2 Duos, maybe even an AMD Phenom CPU. These are all 10 plus year old, or at least close to 10 plus year old CPUs, and that's really where you're going to be able to save your money. And not every, folks looking to to succeed in high school, just do the basic high school work, or go to college. They're gonna, especially in the current world that we live in, they're gonna need some type of computer to utilize. And not everybody's got a lot of money. That's a fact of the world that we live in. So somebody may just get their dad's old laptop that he used for 10, 12 years, gets passed down to them. It's got 2 cores. It's only got maybe like 2 gigabytes of RAM. So they've got to make it work with what they got. And that's what Bodhi Linux is going to allow you to do. It's really going to make those older hardware devices seem like, hey, this is something. It feels like I'm running something brand new. Now, I tested Bodhi with quite a few different browsers, because that's going to be very, very important. It does come with Bodhi Linux does come with a built-in browser, which is just called Web. Now, it's not bad. It's okay. But it still seems to eat up quite a bit of resources. Now, let me go ahead and pull up the terminal here. It always likes to capitalize it when you first bring it in. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is that I should have configured this before, but this is a great program if you've watched my other videos to use to monitor your computer's resources. It's HTOP. So let's go ahead and give that just a minute here to install. Now, one of the things that I did do to kind of test this out is I've actually got quite a bit of computer hardware, and one of the older machines that I have is an HP Z600 workstation. This thing was manufactured back in 2010. It originally ran I think Windows 7, if I'm not mistaken. And it had support for Ubuntu back from that time, but it looks like they did some kind of update which disabled that support. But I did get Linux Mint's Debian edition working on it. Now it runs great, but one of the reasons I wanted to utilize it for this particular video is because of that 10-year-old processor. Now, why is that important? Because it's going to allow me to kind of give you an idea of what you can expect out of the older hardware with running Bodhi Linux. Now, I'm going to show you two different configurations with Bodhi Linux. I'm going to show you with a single older core, and a single gigabyte of RAM. And I'm also going to go ahead and show you with 2 cores and 2 gigabytes of RAM, and show you how big of a difference that can make. And I originally ran this experiment on, one of my, it's an Acer laptop that I have. It's running an 8th gen i5. I used a single core from that and a single gigabyte of DDR4 RAM. Well, the thing about it is of course it's going to run faster on that hardware because, we're looking at much more modern hardware. So I was like, okay, well, let me go ahead and kind of show more of a worst case scenario, because this workstation uses what's called a Xeon, Intel processor, and those are meant to run in servers. They're single core performance, which is kind of what we're going to be looking at here in the initial run of Bodhi Linux. Is it's not going to have that strong single core performance, and it's got older RAM in there. It's only running at 13. It's 1 gigabyte of 33 megahertz RAM. So you're really going to be able to see, the difference between using single core 1 gigabyte of RAM versus 2 cores and 2 gigabytes of RAM. Now, let me go ahead and start. I'm also going to go ahead and install here. We're going to install Terminator, because I really don't. There's a little bit less functionality in the terminal when it comes to Bodhi, so I wanted to go ahead and give me something with a little bit more functionality. So let's give it just a second. It's a real quick install. All right, give it just a second here. So you can see it's installing these small programs are installing relatively quickly, even on a single core and single gigabyte of RAM. Now, one of the cool things that I have really liked about it is that you can just right click on the desktop and it'll bring up basically your whole, we'll just call it the start menu. And that is pretty cool. Now, let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and split this. We're going to split it vertically. We just make this a little bit bigger too, because I don't really need it for the entire. And forgive me if some of this is a little raw, just because I'm not used to running it just quite yet. So yeah, there's going to be ways you can do that, but this should be sufficient right here for our purposes. So let's go ahead and run htop over here. Htop is going to show us how much we're using. This as far as a percentage. We're using very little. CPU. We're using about 226 megabytes of RAM, which we've still got quite a bit of headroom to use. Now, one of the things that's going to eat up a lot of your RAM is going to be internet performance. So we open up this browser and immediately it shoots up to 67.6% and then 100%. Now, if we're doing just basic browsing, it's not really going to be a big issue. If we just want to do, like, I don't know, let's just Google, whoops. We just do a google.com. And as you can see here, it's Bodhi's base web browser is pretty slow. Now, there's a way that we can go ahead and kind of get faster internet responses. Now, what we want to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and install Firefox. We're going to do a sudo apt update. And see, the thing about Firefox, it's going to have a lot less junk running in the background, like you do on a lot of other browsers that are based on Chrome or Opera and things like that. Really, Chrome is really built to sell you stuff. At the end of the day, that's what Google is Google's not really a tech company. They're a marketing company. They sell stuff. They sell advertising space. That's what they do. They just happen to also do some technology-oriented things. So, and then just to go ahead and install it, sudo apt install Firefox. Now, Bodhi is built upon Ubuntu, so pretty much everything that works in Ubuntu is going to work here. They do have some apps that you can use and things like that. I'm gonna just be kind of I'll show you that briefly. One of the drawbacks to utilizing Linux to revive this old hardware is that it's not always going to be the most user friendly experience, at first, because there's going to be a learning curve. And the thing about it is when you're broke, I'm like, you really don't have a whole lot of choice. My mom always used to say beggars can't be choosers. So you got to work with what you've got. Now, yeah, we can see that right now it's spiking just as it did previously. But usually this is more when it first loads up. And see, look, it's already going down. Where using their browser, it stayed pegged there. So we've already look at that. We've gone all the way down to 3.7 down to 0%. Which there's still processor being used, even though it says 0%. It's just very, very small amount of the processor being used. Because one of the important things is going to be video playback. With theirs, like their built-in browser is missing the HTML5 support for YouTube, which is going to make playing a lot of videos a lot more difficult. So what we want to do is we want to try to find a balance, and keep in mind that when we're talking about doing something on a budget is when we're talking about doing something on a budget, there's going to be compromises made. Full stop. So you're going to have to learn, but the thing about it is it makes you better. Struggle builds character. So this is a video that I actually released earlier today. I'm recording this on Saturday to try to get it out on Sunday, so we actually have Linux Sunday on a Sunday for once. So let's go ahead and pull up this video. I'm just going to go ahead and mute it. It is taking a minute to get itself pulled up. Let's check this. We're going to leave it at this base quality of 480p. That's not too bad if all you're doing really is video playback. Now let's go ahead and turn on the stats for nerds. Now, the reason that we're looking at stats for nerds is because we want to take a look at the frame drops. Now, right now we can see that 7 drop frames of over 700 total frames has been dropped. That's actually not bad. You're gonna have it, just depending on the speed of your hardware, as well as your network connection and things like that. But really, why I wanted to show this to you is because that's a really important part of the learning process. Is we got a lot of people out there who are visual learners. They're going to want to see it. So this is going to give you that ability to do that. Is you're utilizing this much lighter browser, and you're using the lower quality settings. Now you could turn this up to 720p if you really wanted better quality. That's probably not going to be the resolution of older laptops. So I would probably honestly, like, I would probably stick with 480p, and honestly 480p really is just fine if all you're looking to do is just watch a video and get what you can out of it. Now we can see the usage of the CPU is spiking, and it's still up here. Yeah, and we don't have a lot of drop frames, so you could probably comfortably watch it here. But keep in mind that as you start multitasking, if you start Googling, you just start Googling stuff. Let's go to google.com. Let's say we're trying to do a search for Harvard University, so yeah, it's actually still not too bad. You're going to have spikes when it's doing stuff like this, but that's not bad. It's going to spike up for just a little bit, then it goes back down. Now, keep in mind that like when you're in college, or in high school, or whatever age that you're at middle school, you're gonna be multitasking. That's just the world that we live in. So we're gonna install Libre Office, which is basically Microsoft Office for Linux, is kind of what we can call that. And it's a great Office suite. It has a lot of the functionalities that Microsoft Office does, Excel does. Now they are implemented differently. So you would have to go to the documentation, and that's what a lot of this is going to be about. Is it's going to be about going to that documentation, and spending the time learning something new. But the thing about it is once you get it, you're going to be much better off. And if you actually see here, if we look back at this video, it's dropped 634 frames of more than 3,000. But keep in mind that we are running an install through the terminal, so that is going to cause a lot more resources to be utilized up. And you can see that the processor is pretty much just like pegged at 100%. So it's gonna take time for things to install. So I want to go ahead and bring up one of these documents just so I can show you. And let's go ahead and stop this playback. And let's run an experiment while that's happening. Let's run. Oh, it's actually already at 480p. So let's check it out at 480p, because remember it was at 720p. So even at really 480p, it's 91. We're dropping like a quarter, if not more, of the frames. While we're doing that, see, it's really if you're doing anything that's gonna be process intensive, and this is actually pretty impressive, the fact that it's still, being able to render this video while it's installing the LibreOffice suite. LibreOffice suite is not huge by any stretch of the imagination, but it's clearly taking time for this to come up. So, and you can see that the windows are slowing down when we're trying to switch between them. So this is all stuff to keep in mind. It's going to be about managing your expectations. And what you'll notice is once we get to 2 cores and 2 gigabytes of RAM, it's going to improve a lot. And most even from like the last 10 years, 10, 12 years, a lot of them have been dual cores. So you're going to get pretty decent performance without, without having to have modern hardware, because this is such a lightweight distribution. And, they have their own documentation that you can use. And I'm just kind of bringing up some stuff here on my the host system. So here you go. This is their website, and they have the wiki here. You've got it'll give you the table of contents. So you can search. Okay, so getting started. You can talk about what is Bodhi Linux. And adding software, the App Center, and things like that. Like, let's just click on the App Center. It doesn't have a lot. It is not like it is with Ubuntu and a lot of other distributions. It's just got all it's got this, and really what they're looking to do is they really wanted you to want the users to be able to make it what they want. And if really all you need is a school laptop, this is going to be great. Like, there's going to be a little bit more of a learning curve, but the beauty of it for you is going to be that you're going to be able to use something that's already existing. And not only are you saving money, but you're also not adding to additional e-waste and things like that. So like, if we just here's just like the system requirements. The minimum is what I gave you, and keep in mind it's going to run like garbage when you put it on that hardware. But keep in mind that you can run it on their recommended specs of the 64-bit, 1 gigahertz, 786 megabits of RAM. You're going to be pushing it with 786 megabits of RAM. I'm going to tell you that right now. Even 512, even with 1 gigabyte of RAM, as we've already seen, is really pushing it. You know, and you can get basic functionality out of a single gigabyte of RAM, but once you start multitasking, that's really when it's going to start holding you back. So you definitely want to go ahead and you know and take that into consideration. You know, and I was trying to find they have like a little like, oh hey, welcome to, oh here we go, yeah, so like here we go, this is like, what is Bodhi Linux? You know, it's the word Bodhi, which is derived from a Sanskrit word. I am not even going to try to say that because I have no familiarity with Sanskrit, but it means enlightenment. It's really looking for minimalism. You know, that's why when you really the base programs that are really are base default or default applications are, excuse me, LeafPad, Pacman FM, ePhoto. There's a PDF viewer, Epiphany, which is the web browser, and then Terminology, which is the terminal. And it's using the Moxie desktop, which is a super lightweight desktop. You know, so it's real. I feel that it's really accomplishing its mission, and we have this here. So let's go ahead and bring back up our. We've got our video here. It's still, it's dropping quite a few frames, but not as many, especially now that it's not as bad. So let's go ahead and we're just going to right click here on the desktop. We're going to go ahead and go in here to, whoops. We're going to go down here to Office. So, and let's go ahead and just, let's open up the Excel equivalent. So give it just a second, and we can see that again, it's spiking when we're opening stuff, but hey, you know, we understand why it's doing that. And we've got that open, so, you know, and it's actually not too bad. So we're still actually getting pretty decent performance. The swap space and the RAM are really maxing out, and you would really, really, really be pushing it. And keep in mind that even if you're using that recommended amount of RAM, you're probably, that 768 megabytes, you're not going to get that full 768 megabytes. Right now, you would basically have maxed out your RAM. Now, one of the things I probably should have done is given this system more than 10 gigabytes of storage, but it's fine. That's not going to play as too much. That will impact your swap space, which is basically just additional, it allows it to use use it as additional resources to kind of help with other processes and things like that. That's why you can see it here. You don't normally see that on a desktop like mine. The swap is not getting anywhere near being used. So, all right. So, you know, we can see that this is usable, but you're gonna have some compromises, especially once you start loading up them tabs. I'm not even gonna create stuff here. We're just going to kind of open up a bunch of tabs, not too many, and I'm just going to kind of go to some of the stuff here on the home pages, Reddit, Wikipedia, and we can already see everything is slowing down and spiking. You know, look at how slow that is to load. It's very, very slow. See, look, it's, you know, if you're patient with it, great. Now, one of the things that I would recommend, doing is if you do have an older laptop, you know, I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to set that up with a solid state drive. You know, if you just go to Amazon, I'm just going to use that as a baseline because we're going to go with, you know, a new product. I have it off screen here, so bear with me here. I'm just going to put in 120 gigabyte SSD is what we're going to put in here. All right, look at this. This is an inland 120 gigabyte SSD for $19.99. Then there's this 11 SSD for $17.25. Silicon powered for $18.99. ADATA for $19.99. If you want to buy a bunch of them, you can get a 10 pack for $170 even. So you're gonna have a lot of options. $19.99, $18.99. And keep in mind, these aren't going to be the highest quality drives, but you want to know what? They're going to make your system a whole heck of a lot faster and a whole heck of a lot more responsive. So that's going to save you in a lot of frustration. Now, let's go ahead and shut this down. And we're going to up everything to we're going to change it to 2 cores and 2 gigabytes of RAM. So I'm just going to go in here to the settings real quick. $2,048. We're going to go ahead and just up the cores here. Okay, we'll just type it in because it doesn't want to go ahead and go up. All right, let's go ahead and start it anew. Give it just a second here to go ahead and reload. All right, perfect. And it's even loaded quicker. It was a lot faster than the first time I did it. All right, perfect. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and start our terminal so we can see our baseline. Let's rerun htop. All right, perfect. And we're only using 200, just as a base, we're only using 222 megabytes of RAM of our 2 gigabytes. And we can see our 2 cores up there. We're not currently using any swap. Now, when I ran these tests initially, I've tried them with Firefox. I tried them with Opera. I tried them with Chrome, and then I tried it with the built-in browser Epiphany. And the results, a lot of them were the same. With the other ones outside of Firefox is just slow responses. A lot of crap running in the background. And there's going to be ways that you can. There's going to be ways that you can go ahead and get around doing that. There's things that you can shut off and settings you can change, but I'm really going for try to go for as simple as an install as possible to get you up and running, since this is going to be something that's going to be more school and learning related. So let's go ahead and bring up our Firefox again. And we can already see that, it's spiking up, but we're getting, it's going to happen no matter what. But look at that. It's recovering a lot faster because now it has the 2 cores. So let's go back to YouTube. All right, and we're going to bring up everyone's favorite YouTube channel. All right, and it's already muted, so we don't have to worry about that. But look, it didn't even spike up to 100 when we did that. And we can see it going down now. So let's go ahead and let's turn on that stats for nerds. Again, we're going to just keep leaving it at 480p. I'm not going to go ahead and go into 720p because I would, honestly, for something like this, I'm just going to use whatever the default is, personally. That's just me. So let's turn on that stat for nerds, and wow, look at that. Of the 666 packets, there's 0 have been dropped, which is already an improvement. So let's go ahead and come in here. Let's go back to YouTube. And we're going to go over to this one. Turn on the stats for nerds. Still none. So, because we're having such great performance, well, actually, no, let's go ahead and start opening up our tabs. Let's open up a Wikipedia. Let's open up a Facebook. You know, we have 2 Facebook accounts, so we're going to open up another Facebook. And we can already see that these things are launching a lot faster than what they were before. Now let's go ahead and, let's open up a document. We want to open up our Excel. You know, 8 drop frames, still not too bad. You know, we're doing quite a bit at a single time, so it's impressive. Let's go ahead and open up another document. Say we need to open up a Word. And if we go back, we can see that, it's still only dropped 11 frames. So it's still really not too bad, but we can see that the performance has gone up substantially. Let's minimize that. We're using quite a bit of our RAM, but things are still running pretty smoothly. We could even open up, a few more tabs. Let's open up another YouTube. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is actually pretty common for me. As you saw when I had mine open, I had a ton of tabs open. But still, look at this. We have 2 documents open. We've got 2 YouTube videos playing at the exact same time. We've got our terminal open. I don't want to sit here and call us, multitasking masters, but, we've definitely really, really stepped up. Because now we can do multiple things without our system lagging too much. So, I highly encourage you to utilize this operating system for, your older stuff. This could get you all the way through 4 years of college, could get you through high school, could get you through middle school. So this is definitely something that you'll want to consider. So I really thank you very much for listening and watching my video today. If you like the content, if you like this video and the content I'm making, go ahead and give me a thumbs up and let me know what you like down below. If you did not like the video or the content that I make, go ahead and give me a thumbs down and tell me what I can do to improve. You can always just stop by and say hello down below. Or, give me any kind of feedback that you would like. Go ahead, if you really like the content that I'm making, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification so that you know when I launch new videos. Typically, I do them on Saturdays and Sundays just because during the week I don't have a whole lot of time. So, thank you very much for watching my video and have a great day.